At Edenside, we surveyed our teachers and found that fractions was the component of number that we were collectively least confident in teaching. It was also the part of maths that many of our learners felt nervous about. To address this, staff worked in level teams to engage in a series of collaborative sessions based on a core text, Developing Fraction Knowledge by Wright, Norton and Hackenberg. Together, we reflected on our reading and investigated the progression of understanding fractions, pedagogical approaches and assessments. Over a series of CAT sessions, we read about, reflected upon collectively and discussed the 5 mental actions required to understand fractions and use fractions. Armed with this common understanding, we then went on to collaboratively create our own Edenside fractions progression, which outlined progressive learning intentions to understand and use fractions linked to the Curriculum for Excellence E's and O's. We populated the progression with key vocabulary, pictorial representations and possible resources that could be used to teach these learning intentions. We all trialled the practical assessments outlined in the text to gauge where children were in their learning and plan their next steps, coming together to evaluate and moderate these assessments. Time was spent to set up systems so that we could share resources with one another, making sure that they were linked to the learning intentions we'd set. I definitely feel much more confident in teaching fractions now. I think that having opportunities to analyse the text and talk about its theories' implications on teaching learning within my classroom brought far more benefits than if I'd engaged in this professional reading independently. This collaborative learning definitely extended beyond our CAT sessions, with teachers discussing their fraction lessons, assessments and insights regularly. We shared and created resources together, and I think that the core text we studied gave us a shared understanding, approach and language in order to do this.
At Edenside Primary School and as a cluster, we have spent time engaged in comparative judgement to do a large-scale cluster writing moderation. This involved looking at 2 pieces of writing side by side and simply judging which we thought was the superior writing. Studies have shown that marking by yourself and marking based on a particular writing scale has many flaws, and that all judgment is a form of comparison, comparing quality with quality. By engaging in a comparative judgment, it enabled me as a teacher to not just compare the writing of my students with those of other teachers in other schools, but also meant that I was able to look very specifically at what it is that makes one piece of work superior to another, what it is that could be worked on in the future, and where as a cluster we were as a whole. I'm going to go through a quick demonstration on the No More Marking website that we use to go into more detail. So if I start comparing colours, simply looking for giving each shade, first of all, a mark from 1 to 8. I think that currently looks quite dark, so I'm going to give that a 7. I think that one looks quite light, so that's getting a 2. That's going to get a 4, a 3, a 6, a 7, a 4, a 2. So I got 5 out of 8. So absolute judgments in this case haven't working. However, if I do a comparative judgment, I simply have to click on what I think is the darker shade. This is much easier because I'm not doing it in isolation. I'm doing it by directly comparing 2 things. By doing this as a writing moderation, we were able to create a scale of the lowest to the highest quality of writing across multiple schools, which gave us an opportunity to look at where our students are in terms of writing, where the top level is, where the bottom level is, and what is needed to make writing improved across the whole cluster. Here I've got a tricky comparison, so I'm going to go for the left-hand side one. And as I keep going, the pictures at the bottom are making themselves in order. And now we've got a very well-ordered section rather than the 5 out of 8 that I had before. I found this hugely helpful as a teacher fairly near the beginning of my career, as it enabled me, without feeling worried about judgment of other teachers, to do an anonymised assessment of writing, and each person looked at many tens of pieces of writing rather than looking in great detail at one piece of writing at a time. It was remarkably fast to be able to tell the quality of judgment of one apart from the other, whereas spending minutes and minutes and minutes at a time trying to work out exactly the quality of a piece of writing with just one in front of you would have been much less successful.
Implementing SEAL in our school has had an incredible impact. As a school, we have engaged in professional reading, dialogue, and constant reflection to ensure our learners build a strong number sense, the foundation for all mathematical learning. As a teacher, my subject knowledge has increased hugely. I feel so confident teaching numeracy, and I know that I am getting it right for the learners in my class. Using SEAL with a concrete pictorial abstract approach has resulted in more confident learners who are not only successful in their learning, but can explain what strategies they have used to get there. Children at Edenside learn through active exploration of a mathematical concept, direct teaching at their level, and fun practice sessions. They enjoy maths because they understand what they are doing and why.